asked you last week to share your thoughts, your ideas, your questions. I don't know that I have the answers, but we got a lot of ground to cover today because you responded in a big way. Let's start the meeting.
Whatever you're going through, you will get through it because you're here. And that means you are not alone. This is the Meaningful Meeting. Now your host, Ace Cannon.
I've said it from the beginning, and I always make the same point because I'm paranoid about it to make sure that you understand. I'm not a therapist. I'm no one special. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of stuff in life and still going through a lot of it, still struggling with a lot of it. And that's why we're here every week to let everybody know you're not here by yourself. You're not alone in what you're experiencing, although it feels like that quite often. Because part of making myself feel better about my situation and trying to improve is the idea that something here each week helps you. That helps me. So here we are with today's edition of the Meaningful Meeting. So if you haven't followed us every week, I mentioned last week, I like hearing from you. I like knowing what it is you want to talk about, what it is you want to discuss, what's on your mind. Because let's face it, I don't want to rehash the same stuff here every week because there's got to be more than what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing. And we'll be bringing some few people in now as we kind of get the new fall season underway. I have some ideas for people I want to talk to and let them share their experiences as well. But I got a lot of nice feedback from a variety of people with different situations, which I thought would be fun to kind of go through today. So kind of a different situation today. With this week's edition of the Meaningful Meeting. So, for example, and I'll leave everybody's name out, but a guy DM'd me on Twitter and said, Ace, just finished yesterday's Meaningful Meeting podcast and how it was the first birthday of your mom since she passed away. September 13th was my wife's birthday, who passed away in January, and it was the first one without her. Whew. Thanks for reminding me that I'm not alone. Well, that's a tough one. I'll be honest with you. My mom's birthday was odd. It was weird. I thought about it a lot. It was Friday. My mom would have been 81 years old. And I mentioned this on last week's edition of the Meaningful Meeting. But my situation is different because my mom had dealt with Alzheimer's for so long. She had fought such a valiant fight against Alzheimer's that when my mom passed away, this is going to sound cold, but it was a bit of a relief. Like, thankfully, she's not hurting anymore. She's not struggling anymore. She's not sad anymore because we saw that decline. Now, your wife passed away in January, and this was the first birthday without her. That's got to be excruciating. I would think it's more similar to when my daughter passed away. I had a full year to come back around to that. Tough year, really tough year. The first of kind of a few tough years in a row since she died. But yeah, the point is, that's the point of this whole thing every week. You're not alone. You're not by yourself. There are a lot of people experiencing similar situations. They're not going through the exact same thing, but as I mentioned many times, a lot of these things are universal. When you're dealing with loss or you're dealing with difficult situations, overcoming alcoholism or drug abuse or divorce, whatever the case may be, financial struggles. There are some universals that go along with all of these things. For example, I got a DM from a lady named Jennifer. She said I could say her name. I won't say her last name. And she said, I'm going through a divorce and it feels like I'm drowning and alone. I have 2 kids and I'm trying to be strong for them, but it seems like there is so much to do and I just can't seem to accomplish anything. And the loss hurts and there is a feeling of hopelessness. I know it will get better, but how long did it last? I know it will get better, but how long did it last? And was it hard to carry on? Okay. This is very similar to when I experienced my divorce years ago. It's in many ways, there are a lot of similarities between the loss of my marriage and the loss of my daughter. Now, both very painful. Very, very painful. One you kind of see coming. The divorce, you feel that. You know that quite often. There is an immediacy to death, like the death of my daughter in a car crash, That's extremely painful. Extremely painful. So they're both painful, different types of pain. So let's cover this though. I feel like I'm drowning and alone. I understand that completely. And again, that similarity between the death of someone and when you're experiencing a divorce or the breakup of a relationship, you do feel like you're drowning. You feel like it's just hard to start every day because the plan for the rest of your life has now changed. Whether you are at fault or not, whether you have any involvement in it or not, everything changes. And the rest of your life will never be the same. The rest of your life will never be what you thought it was supposed to be. She says, I have 2 kids. I'm trying to be strong for them, but it seems like there is so much to do and I just can't seem to accomplish anything. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So here's a tip. This is not anything that I created, but I can tell you the mindset behind it. I know one time I saw a guy talk about, and it might have been Dave Ramsey, who I don't know a tremendous amount about, but he's a financial consultant. He helps people with their finances on a radio show. It's very, very successful. And one of the things I heard him talk about one time was when you have debt, when you have credit card debt, bills, etc., start with the smallest things and eliminate those first. For example, rather than spread out spending so much money on 4 different things, focus on one of those things. Like pay the minimum on the other 3 credit cards that you have and focus everything on the smallest debt so that you eliminate things. Do one thing, do another thing. And that's kind of where I started thinking about, okay, well, when it comes to getting stuff done, first off, you just got to feel like you're accomplishing something. Like for Jennifer here, she said, I'm trying to be strong with them. It seems like there's so much to do and I just can't seem to accomplish anything. Well, you got to feel like you could do something. So whatever your situation, you got to feel like you've done something. Number 1, start with the small tasks. Do the little things. Just so you can check them off the list. Well, I got that done. And I got that done. And pretty soon you'll start to feel, it'll take time, but you'll start to feel like I can accomplish things. Here's the other tip. It's probably not as hard as you think it is. Meaning the tasks. When you go through a divorce, you've got a lot of things. There are a lot of loose ends that have to be taken care of, depending upon, where you go and do you have to relocate and you got to take care of house stuff and you got to move and blah, 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 and all these different things. What do I do with these pictures? And every little thing becomes a decision that you have to make. So start with the easy ones. Start with the little ones. Clear them out of the way. That helps free you up. It helps get the gears moving. It helps some forward momentum is being generated. And then you'll be able to start dealing with the more difficult tasks, the big tasks, the one that will really require a great deal of time and attention because you freed yourself up. She said the loss hurts and there's a feeling of hopelessness. Now, I don't know how far along she is in her journey, for lack of a better term, through divorce. But I can say this, in my particular case, it was a couple of years long journey, building for years before that. And you have to go through some different things. And I'm talking specifically about divorce in this case, but again, I think it's a universal. But when you go through a divorce, there comes a time where you have to have a mediation. And I know once that was complete, a plan was then formed. And at least in my case, I was able to then see, okay, this is what life is going to look like. You've cleared up a lot of the messiness. Mediation is difficult. Fortunately for me, it's sad, but mine was relatively easy. My ex-wife and I, it wasn't contentious. We were able to just work through things all within a day, which is apparently very surprising to a lot of people. Literally the paperwork and all was finished same day. So it was very easy on our part. But once that was done, I remember going home that night and thinking, okay, big hurdle has been crossed. The next thing that happens is you have the final paperwork to sign. You sign the final paperwork, and then you just wait. And I'll never forget, I had gone down to the gym one morning before work to do cardio. I was living in this little one-bedroom apartment. Oh, I just moved. I'm sorry, I take that back. Once the thing was done, I'd moved to a different apartment, and I was gone down to the gym, same apartment complex. I literally moved like 30 yards up the hill. And I went down to the gym, did cardio at like 3:30 in the morning before coming to work. So it makes me feel better. And on the way back, I stopped and grabbed my mail. And I walked in when I grabbed my mail, and as I sifted through it, standing there at the counter with a glass of orange juice, getting ready to go get in the shower, there it was. This letter comes in the mail. And you open it up, and it says you're officially divorced. You know, it's stamped and sealed and the whole thing. And I remember standing there in the kitchen and just thinking like, wow. Wow. That's it. You know, that easy. It's official. Not easy, but you know what I mean? Like that's, okay. It felt like there should have been more to it. Felt like something official should have happened. Like there should have been more than just a letter that comes in the mail that you open. Now I can say this, at that moment, it felt like, okay, now the rest of my life can begin. So my point is, I know that it feels hopeless right now. It's going to take a little time. But again, start with the little things and eliminate them. You'll move on to those bigger things. And eventually, that letter is going to come in the mail. And I can almost guarantee you at that moment, you're going to be able to just take one deep breath and just exhale and realize now, life 2.0 begins. And that's going to be a tremendous burden lifted off of your shoulders in many ways. Because now it feels like you can go on living. Almost as if you're free now to live a life. Because all of the I's have been dotted, all the T's have been crossed, and life can now carry on. That part of your life has now been put aside. It's over. It's time to move forward. It's going to take time. I don't know how long it will take because it depends upon your particular situation. And then I got this message from a guy. He said, hey, Ace, I'll leave his name. My name is, and I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm 29 years old. I've been a listener since I started driving myself and my sister to school back in high school. I just listened to the Meaningful Meeting from this week, talking about taking your son to Chicago for the baseball game. My dad and I have gone to every Star Wars movie on opening night that has come out in my lifetime, starting back in 1999 when I was 5 years old. In total, we've seen 8 movies, all but the original trilogy that came out before I was born. I've been married for 4 years, and my wife and I have a 1-year-old son. I don't really have a question for you, but I wanted you to know how much I enjoy the Meaningful Meeting. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'm constantly feeling like I'm just not good enough, that I'm always letting the people I love down the most. The Meaningful Meeting is always encouraging, and it's nice to know that I'm not alone in some of the struggles I face. Thank you for what you do. Okay, I didn't share that with you for you to see how great he thinks the Meaningful Meeting is. I share that with you because of one particular line in here. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'm constantly feeling like I'm just not good enough, or that I'm always letting the people I love the most down. Well, you, sir, are definitely not alone. That's a tough one. And that's something that I deal with all the time. All the time. I told you last week when it came to my mom, I felt like I let my mom down because for all the years that I was financially able to do things for her and help her, she didn't want anything. She didn't need me to do anything. She didn't ask me to do anything. I did some things for her here and there and took her on a couple of vacations and that kind of stuff. And she loved it all, but she never asked me for anything. But when she needed me, when she really needed me, I wasn't able to do for her the things I could have done before. I don't know that I'll ever get over that. That's a hard one. That makes me feel like a failure. That's a tough one. I feel like I let her down. You know, the person I admired the most in the world. Damn it, I let that person down. So I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you're saying. My level of responsibility and the things that have gone wrong in my life over the course of the past few years, it's a heavy burden to bear. I carry a tremendous amount of guilt over my daughter's death. I wasn't there. I certainly, didn't tell her to drive too fast. I wasn't involved. It wasn't even a car that I'd gotten for her. It was a rental car that she was driving. There's just something about it. Like, did I not do it? You start asking yourself things like, did I not do a good enough job as a father? Did I not say, even though I said it 1,000 times, you have a tendency to drive too fast. You drive too fast. Specifically, you drive too fast on this road. I'll guarantee you 100 times in her life, she heard me say that. On the very road where she died, you drive too fast on this road. Should I have said it more? And I say all the time, and I even messaged him back and said, look, here's the thing you got to remember. You've got to remember that you can't change what has already passed. You can't change what happened yesterday or a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. You can't. Now, I'll say that to you until I'm blue in the face because it's true. You can't, that you got to let that go because there's nothing you can do about that. I don't subscribe to that. That doesn't mean I don't. I know that. Like, I know it. I'm telling you right now. It's a fact. You got to let that go. I don't. I've never gotten over it, which is a lot of the reason that I go to therapy. Going this afternoon, as a matter of fact, starting up again. I've told you before, I'm in a different situation now than I was when my ex-wife was 31 and I was 32. I'm in a very different situation financially than I was. My wife, Amanda, and our baby, Dax, because I want to be able to do for them and give them all of the things that I was able to give to, Peyton and Kate and my ex-wife, Shawnette, when they were that age, when they were growing up. I want all of those things for Amanda. I want all of those things for Dax. I want all of those experiences for them to have, to travel and have these adventures and be able to experience things that I was never able to experience as a child. And it's not something I can do for them right now as I try to reinvent my life and reinvent who I am as a professional, as a performer, as an entertainer, as whatever I'm going to be in the next part of my life. And honestly, that's been really hard to do. It's very difficult to do. It's hard to find the confidence to do, but I have to because my desire to do that for them overrides the lack of confidence that I have in myself at times. All of that is a tremendous amount of guilt. Feeling like I let down the people I love the most in this world. So I understand exactly what you're saying. But here's what I come to find out. There's a very good chance that they don't feel you've let them down at all, probably. Not nearly as much as you think you do. They probably, the people you love the most, have a very different lens on life through which they see it. So I'm going to work on letting go of guilt about the past. I'm going to work on only looking at the things that were negative and not enjoying the positives. But you have to do the same thing because we're all in this together. And again, there's a very good chance the people that you love, and this goes for anybody, there is a very good chance that the people that you love the most don't feel let down, probably at all. If they do, it's not nearly to the level, to the degree that you think, because we are always harder on ourselves in these situations because you care so much about them. You want so badly to do all these special things for them. You want so much to provide and be that someone special in their lives. I've said it before. Whenever I have kids, for each one of my kids, I only really want one thing, to be their hero. It's a tall order, man. That's a lot. But that's what I expected from myself. That's what I wanted from myself. That's who I wanted to be. I just wanted to be their hero. That's all. My mom was my hero. And I made certain that I told her that. So she knew that because I know she dealt with a lot of guilt about the fact that we didn't have a lot at times. We had plenty. She didn't feel like we had a lot. She felt like we missed out on some things, but we did. Case in point. She didn't let me down nearly as much as she thought she did. She didn't let me down at all. So I hope that you'll be able to take this and move forward with a different perspective, believing in yourself a little bit more, because that's going to change everything. I've got to find a way to change that in myself. You've got to find a way to change it in yourself, because I know that it'll be better. I know it will be. I'm positive of that. You just got to make it happen. You got to believe, and things will get better. And one day someone will ask you the very same question that you asked me. And I hope that you remember this moment, this experience, this time. Because one day you will tell your story of how you've come through what you're going through now, and that will become part of someone else's survival guide. And there is no greater compliment that I think could be given to someone. To know that you, from your experience, were able to help them survive and prosper through their experience. Questions, comments, ideas, thoughts? Man, I love this. This was fun. It's Ace at Large, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just anytime. Just believe in yourself. See you next week.
Now, whatever you're going through, you're not alone. You are a part of the Meaningful Meeting, presented by the Radio Network. Copyright ATJ Inc. 2022.